Hello, this is Professor Torsen. In this video, I'm going to show you how you can use Punnett squares to solve genetic story problems. In this particular story problem, we are looking at blood types. Blood types are a classic example of codominance. In codominance, neither allele is dominant or recessive. So neither allele can mask the expression of the other. If an individual has two different alleles, what we might normally call a heterozygote, they will express both alleles. So I always like to begin these story problems by listing the genotypes and corresponding phenotypes. So for blood types, there are 6 different genotypes listed here. So I've got capital A, and lowercase I, and both of those genotypes correspond to individuals with type A blood. So the phenotype is type A blood. Continuing down the list, I see the next 2 genotypes are capital B, and capital BI. Individuals with either of those 2 genotypes will have the phenotype of type B blood. And the last 2 genotypes are shown here. This individual is AB, and their blood type will be type AB blood, and little I, which corresponds to type O blood. So now that we have the genotypes and corresponding phenotypes, we can go back to the story problem. So this particular story problem is looking at 2 sets of parents. The first set has blood types AB and blood type O. So let's look at couple number 1. So their phenotype is one person is type AB and the other person has type O blood. So I can come down to my genotype phenotype list and I discover, well, the only way you can have blood type AB is if you have both the A and the B allele. So the couple number 1 genotype for the parent with AB blood is the genotype AB. The second parent is type O blood. And for type O blood, the genotype is little I. So for couple number 1, the cross would look something like that. And we can go ahead and complete the Punnett square for this particular cross. And I put the genotype of one parent on the left-hand side and the genotype of the other parent up top. This first quadrant will inherit the A allele from this parent and the lowercase I allele from that parent. This quadrant, same thing. It'll have an A allele and then that lowercase I. This quadrant inherits the B allele and the lowercase I, and same with this last quadrant, B allele and lowercase I. So for couple number 1, we see that their blood types can combine and they will either have offspring with the genotype A little I, or they will have an offspring with the genotype B little I. And it's a 50-50 probability. This, of course, is the genotype, And the corresponding phenotype is type A blood and type B blood. And again, it's a 50-50 shot of which genotype it is, and here again are the corresponding phenotypes. If we go back to the story problem, it seems that one baby girl has blood type B and the other baby girl has blood type O. So just by completing the Punnett square for couple number 1, I see that there is no way couple number 1 can have a child with type O blood. The way the genotypes for couple number 1 combine, they would have a child either with type A or with type B blood. So the baby with blood type B must belong to couple number 1. Now, just to continue this example, I will work the Punnett square for couple number 2 just to double check that couple number 2 can produce a child with type O blood. So for couple number 2, and I'm going to switch to a new sheet of paper here. For couple number 2, the blood types are type A and type B. And again, those are the phenotype. And the corresponding genotypes, we can refer back to the list. And if you notice, there are 2 ways to get type A blood and there are 2 ways to get type B blood. I'm going to look at the genotypes A little I and B little I. And then I can complete the Punnett square. So I put the genotype of one parent on the left-hand side and the genotype of the other parent up top. And then I fill in the Punnett square. This first quadrant inherits the A from this parent and the B allele from that parent. This quadrant inherits the A allele and a little I. This quadrant produces an offspring with the B allele and then lowercase I, and this last quadrant here inherits 2 lowercase i's. So in terms of the genotypic ratios, we have one individual whose genotype is AB. We have one individual whose genotype is AI. We have one individual whose genotype is BI, and we have one individual who is little I, little I. And so it's a 1 out of 4 probability, or 25%, that the offspring will inherit any one of these 4 genotypes. Of course, we're interested also in phenotypes, so if we look at the phenotypes, this individual is going to have type AB blood. This individual is going to have type A blood. This individual is going to have type B blood. And finally, this individual right here is going to have type O blood. And that's what we were looking for because, again, one of the babies had type O blood. So this checks out. Couple number 1 is the parents of the baby girl with type B blood. And couple number 2 are the parents of the baby with blood type O. So I hope this helps you solve your genetic story problems. Thanks for watching, and remember, go wash your hands.